Welcome everyone. The topic for the day is safety inspection and we'll talk about what exactly is safety audit. It is a tool utilized by the management to promote to ensure that safe work procedures, safe work environment is being followed at the industry. It basically determines the different hazard and risk present at the premises. We are talking about finding whether the system is on the right track. What kind of system? The safety system. This is what the safety audit is all about. It is all about preventing losses, preventing safe work procedures, and other work practices are in places or not. This is what we are looking at it. Safety audit, remember, is a tool utilized by the management to keep a check and balances and prevent untoward accident happening in the organization. So what is the duties of a safety officer? As per the state factory, it advises onto the maintenance of records, probably maintenance of the equipment, definitely. Why? Because it wants to determine or deter accident or dangerous occurrences. Next is to advise and to measure as to remove the unsafe actions by the workers. Probably we need to train them. This is what about the training part comes around it. And definitely to the top management, it gives an advice, gives a note relating to what all inspection that is required, what all inspection that has been carried about, what are safety mechanism that needs to be installed to carry basically to carry the health and survey is the duty of the safety committee. So then these are the duties of the safety officers and thereby the safety committee, if any. Safety committee always comprises of the safety officers and the functional head, if not the head, perhaps the supervisor thereby for every outlet that the in a factory, in a plant, in a comes around it. So let us talk about the types of safety audit. There are basically two types. One is an internal safety audit, which is done by the persons within the organization, and then there is an external safety audit. This is again carried by a consultant who is considered to be an expert. Sometimes it is better if we can have certification for complying to the general management. Now what happens with certification, it leads to a lot of insurance issues get resolved at a very fast thing. If you have the requisite certification, nothing like it. Any losses, primarily the property losses, will be mitigated or will be given back, reimbursed by the insurance companies altogether. Yes, we cannot do anything about the loss of lives. Probably there is a compensation or an ex gratia payment that can be spoken around it. Definitely certification goes in a long way to handle such kind of complications altogether. So let us understand who is the person who is responsible for the safety audit. First and foremost, it is your safety committee members. I have already said about the members might be your safety officers, along with the supervisors or the manager or the functional head, departmental head of the organization. Now, what did they do go around it? They basically record, match the standards with the target, and get a first hand information by observing how the works have been carried out. In terms of external safety audit, it is conducted by the external person. For auditing, a certified agencies and procedures are almost identical and standardized. So this is the consultant work which he or she is actually very competent in. So why? The question is, why do we consider safety audit? First and the foremost thing is it gives an opportunity for improvement. It makes your premises accident free. That is what we are looking into it. Next would be giving adequate training to the employees and the staff mentioned around it. Now this gets us right. Once you get these two things right, what does it entail? It means you have a very confident workforce, you have a very compliant regulatory requirement done, you are on the way for a smooth operation of your plant. So that means a smoother flow, a happy employees, probably the happy communities and customers in the long way run. So these are the reasons, primarily three reasons for safety. Talking about the level of audits have been done. Number one, which can be on a regular routine workstation at the on a daily basis, at the beginning of the shift, at the end of the shift. Then there can be a periodic details on the machine, which can be done on a monthly basis, which can be done on a quarterly basis, which can be done on a annually basis, as I keep on saying around it. And high level of audit for an entire safety, it's absolutely to be done on an annual basis, a must requirement. So this is the level that of an audit of the safety that needs to be incorporated within the organization. So how is it conducted? First and foremost thing is to see it with your own eyes. Preliminary visit. Once you have determined with your own eyes, you will find certain anomalies or certain suggestions that will strike you, which needs to be understood as far as audit elements are all about it. We can have a questionnaire, we can have an interaction with the employees um, handling the equipment. We can obviously go for a team meeting, a huddle with the management, the officers, the executives, the workers, together, separately, as the size might determine. Now, this will eliminate or give you a prime feedback as to what exactly has been happening around here. Then we can have a cross verification at site. The personal records, accident, etc., etc., can be determined out here. The verification preparation report and the observation comes very. So aspect covers in an auditing system. What are they? First, the safety policy, the operating instruction, the standing instruction that has been mentioned in the in on the equipment, as in when on basis, the emergency, the disaster control plan, the evacuation plan. The industrial hazard is one of those things that needs to be taken. People often don't do much of a housekeeping, and this leads to unwarranted and unfortunate incident. So please keep an eye for an housekeeping purpose. The inventory purpose and the storage things needs to be given due contingency, due weightage. Machine grading is one more thing that comes around it. How long the machine has been using it, what is the technology that comes around it, what are the resources that it complies with. Are the resources combustible or accident prone or something like that. Use of personal protective equipment is a must. These things has to be understood as far as an auditing systems are to be covered around it. Major problem that happens in an industry is a fire prevention. So we need to look about the evacuation plan. We need to look about the fire prevention facility that has been present, the maintenance, the testing of the machine that comes around it every now and then. So, aspect covers in the auditing system is industrial hygiene, ventilation, skin, contamination control, air, water pollution, noise control, and so on and so forth. Talking about the reporting of the reporting and investigation of the accident, it's the type of the accident that has happened. Is it lost to property? Is it lost to life? Is it lost to a localized thing? Did it spread everywhere? So you need to understand and probably make a record of all investigation. We come to the non-technical part of administration. First is your safety policy. It should be a document that should be mentioned out there, which should tell you exactly what should be done, what are the steps to be done in case of an unfortunate incident. We are talking about the safety organizations, the safety organization where we put clamps in place, all precautions and procedures in action, the safety training that needs to be done from time to time with the workers, with the staff, the safety promotional activities. We can have safety week, safety day, probably anything that sensitizes that you should always be on your toes and things else. We are all working in a hazardous environment as far as this company might be concerned. So communication for safety need not be only verbal. It can be written, it can be on a poster, it can be pasted on the wall, it can be in your email every time you send an email. The personal and the placement that comes around it. The accident investigation reporting is very important, because this reporting will ensure that similar accidents do not happen in the future. This is a now we can always grade this thing about what the grading is all about. It can be a 4-point scale, which says 4 being the maximum as an above average, where 1 is absolutely unacceptable, that needs to be taken around it. So once you scale it up, if somebody has marked it 2, we need to improve in the next particular audit at least to the level of 3, or if possible to the 4. We should always aspire the 4th as an above average performances. Or safety surveys are made up of concrete evidences, detailed observations about everything that is physical or environmental condition. Next is the occupier. The managers of the factory and other workers should provide necessary cooperation to the authorities conducting the survey. Remember, safety surveys also helps in determining safety and training needs of the workers, the supervisors, the management. It gives you an overview of exactly how things have been required to be done altogether. The report on observations and the remedial measures, believe me, has to be discussed with everybody, including the lowest of the laymen and the toppest of the management. We need to understand, and that needs to be percolated, that safety is a vital parameters and is of utmost priority. For each observation noted in the survey, remedial measures has to be suggested, and this can come from most ignorant person, most people, who you might not even consider as very intelligent, but given an opportunity they will come with a very fruitful, very logical, very legible suggestion. So it is a team effort that leads to a safe environment, safe work environment. Action plan can be drawn by taking suggestive remedial measure, and that too within a definitive time. Let us understand the technicalities of safety requirement. First is the machine safety. The machine safety has to be regularly done, both as a preventive and both as a um, absolutely on a regular basis. Safety needs to be done periodic, preventive, whatever you want to go call about it. We speak about the PPEs. Everybody understands this personal protective equipment, things that needs to be worn when you are working in a hazardous climate. Working at heights, there should be clamps onto your waist altogether, so the risk of falling does not happen. Electrical safety, probably we are talking about insulations. People should be wearing rubber boots altogether to get themselves insulated. Work permits needs to be done, and anybody and everybody should not be allowed until and unless he or she is due certified, due permit has been given. Fire control mechanism is to be present in at every instance, at every corner, at a very small distance, both in terms of fire hydrants that we are talking about it, and the other fire deterrents in terms of chemical powders and things like that. Maintenance is one of the factors that we need to go about it. The annual maintenance needs to take place, a quick check maintenance every now and then, and if it is best if we can have a surprise maintenance also. If there are requirement, there are certain slackness in your order book, definitely maintenance it should be utilized to maintain your equipment. Then becomes the storage of chemical. Definitely yes. How do we store the chemical in a container? Which room are they isolated enough? Now, this needs to be understood. Things like that we have to take precautions while working around it. A chemical needs to be stored very effectively. Now we'll talk about the occupational safety. What happens? There are many occupations. For example, somebody who is working in the radiology department of a hospital probably has been exposed to a certain amount of radiation on a daily basis, and which is eventually detrimental to his or her health. So we need to understand with occupational safety. Somebody is working with the steel industry in a coke oven plant where there is a huge amount of temperature around in the 3000 degrees centigrade. There is always a safety issues. We have the environmental protection. Probably we are talking about the pollution that comes around it, the detrimental effect that the environment will be posed because of those economic activities. Hazard identification technique is a must in terms of labeling factors that we comes around it. People, things should be labeled altogether, and we should follow the instructions of the labels. And then we talk about the emergency preparedness. The emergency preparedness will tell you as the evacuation plan. The audit is to give qualitative quantitative terms to find out how far the determined are achieved. Now let us understand the audit rating system. I have already said it is 1, it is 2, it is 3, and it is 4. Remember, this 0 is absolutely unacceptable. We need to improve and strive for the fourth factor, which is the best or above performances that goes around it. Our auditor will give you an indication as to where it is going around it, how good, bad, ugly the precautions are in place, maintenance are in place, and so on and so forth. Safety audit gives you a definitive direction as to how good, bad, ugly you are performing as an organization. So objectives is to make absolute observations of all type of products, whether they are physical, whether they are environmental, whether they are human condition, which is detrimental, which is unwarranted, which is not designed by anybody, and accidents are lurking to happen. So it gives the objectives is to mention those objectives directly. Now, what are we talking about? In every factory, sufficient amount of lighting should be done. Sufficient of aeration should be done. The windows should be all glazed. Skylight for lighting and the inners and the outer surface should be kept very clean. Now, what I'm trying to do is to understand you, make you sure about the glares and shadow. The shadow should not be present. The glare should not come because both of them are blinding your ways of working and giving less time for you to react altogether. So this is what the legal requirements. We come to the next part is the level of illuminations, and I'm just giving the lumens that needs to be taken care in terms of canteen, in terms of very fine work. Look at it. People who are working in a diamond industry, probably they have to have a very fine work around in your offices. If we can have around anything with 300 illuminous of illuminations around, it is good. So please believe me, this is what we need to follow the dictum and the other factors. The age of the workers below 40 can work in a one third of the average illumination, but above 40 it is 2 to 5 times the requirement of lighting as thing we are is required. So you need to understand what is your population, what is the demographic of your employees. We need to understand the size of the object that the people are connecting with. Probably if it is an iron, we are talking about iron melting chemicals. You need to understand um, the danger that it poses altogether. The contrast between the object and the background, which we talk about it. Glare arises when certain part of the field is too bright and probably renders it useless for as far as visibility is concerned. So we need to understand these. With this, I come to an end of this presentation. Thank you for watching this video.